and I will stop saying the word great soon. You ever do that? Like, just notice like 3 sentences in, you're like, oh no, I'm repeating my word too much.
Often.
Okay. Hello, and welcome to episode 144 of Rhythm Encounter, the RPG fan music podcast. I'm your host, Mike Salbato, and today we are hoping to inspire you, or at least share things that inspire us. But before we get into the topic, I want to discuss my panel that's with me today, starting with Tin.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Glad to be back.
I'm glad you're here. After Tin, we also have Lucas here today.
Good morning.
And then, even though you've now been on 2 other podcasts, making your Rhythm Encounter debut is Rob White.
Hello.
I thought about this 2 minutes before we recorded. I really wanted to come up with some good joke about Mr. Greene and Mr. White, and we could have made this like a whole Clue intro, but it came to me too late. So maybe next time. But thank you all for being.
They would join this podcast again.
Yeah. I mean, you both have to be on, and I don't think we have any other like colorful last names in the site, so we can't really do a full one. Maybe
really
we can
too
just.
Bad.
I mean, maybe some of us can just like take fake names for that episode, you know?
Could be a good intro for like a mystery episode or a Phoenix Wright or something.
Oh yeah. Okay. Anyway, thanks all for being here. I think this is going to be a fun one. Again, happy to have you here, Rob, and hope we don't make things too difficult for you, just throwing you into things. But
Oh no, it's great.
So today we are talking about inspirational games or inspirational music. I think there's an overlap. I know originally our plan was inspirational games, so I think there's a little bit of both from what I gather from everyone, like listening to the music and then, looking at the games they're from. So I'm excited. I enjoyed listening to everyone's songs, so I think it's going to be a fun discussion. Before we get to the songs, though, as always, I like to ask what drew people to this episode. So, Tin, what inspired you to join this one?
I think the main reason I joined this episode is that sometimes, like when we're like picking out the topics, for this specific one, I thought like, oh, I can finally bring a song in this episode, like a specific song that I've been wanting to bring on Rhythm, and I just couldn't find an episode to bring them in. So, yeah.
Perfect. How about you, Rob?
I think I was drawn to this one because, I mean, I'm a very creative person generally anyway. I have been since I was a child, really. And I think I draw inspiration from so many different places, like anything that kind of fuels my imagination, really. And I think 2 of the main things that I would say can inspire me are elements from video games and elements from music. So the idea of combining both of those things and talking about them in terms of inspiration, I thought sounded really cool. So I was keen to be on it, and also to just like find out what other tracks people would pick as well.
How about you, Lucas?
This is just such a broad topic that I was just really excited to bring something. I felt like there were a lot of different ways to approach it, so I had a lot of fun brainstorming for it, and excited to have some conversations about it.
Yeah, no, that's a good approach. I think my answer is probably somewhere between Lucas and Tin. I like the idea that it's a broad topic, and there's definitely some songs that I really enjoy and just hadn't really found the right fit for them. I'm like, I want this on the show somewhere, but I don't know where. So this was great for doing that. And generally, I also just like the idea of using music to inspire. I think I talked about this in an episode, or maybe it was just in Slack, but I don't build as many like playlists for myself as I would like to, or probably should. So I have just a few key ones, and one of my key playlists is just an inspirational one. which of course these songs and several others are on there. So yeah, I'm excited about this. In fact, by the time we're done here, I'm guessing most of these songs will make it to my own playlist too. So, all right. Starting off the music today is me, actually. So our first block, we're going to open with Weight of the World Prelude version. That's from Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. In terms of albums, it's off the Death Unto Dawn album. And that is by Keiichi Okabe and Nobuo Uematsu. And then after that, Tin, what is your first song?
Oh, my song is from Persona 3 Load. It's called Color Your Night. And it's composed by Atsushi Kitajo. And the lyrics is by Lotus Juice. So, yeah.
Sure are. All right, let's go listen to Weight of the World and Color Your Night.
And of course I got your back, don't you worry about that. No, it's been a good day, good night. It's gonna be a good day, good night.
So some of the first games that come to my mind for inspiring moments and or inspiring music are both Nier Automata and Final Fantasy XIV. And well, luckily for me, there's a Nier themed raid in 14, so I didn't have to choose between these two things that I love. Most of the raids, like through the regular battles and stuff, just use music straight out of Nier, which is fine. I mean, it's great music and it fits the theme. But the final boss of each of the three legs of the raid have these incredible like crossover themes with blending a song from Nier with Final Fantasy. And they're all great. I mean, I love all of them so much, but this one here, where they combine Weight of the World with just a touch of the Final Fantasy Prelude, just is so moving. It's way up there on my list of Final Fantasy XIV music, of which there is a lot of, as I'm sure you know, but it's just such a grand, like inspirational arrangement. And generally when I talk about Weight of the World, it's so essential. I always feel it's essential to have the vocals, whether it's Janique Nicole or Emmy Evans. I mean, Janique does it, but there's an arrangement with them both anyway. And like that's so important to the feel of the song. So the fact that they still were able to capture that liveliness and that I don't like overuse inspirational, but the fact that it works so well without the vocals really impresses me. The chorus, when you get towards the middle, is just so epic, and then finally, like right around there, it pulls back a little bit, and you get the Final Fantasy Prelude, which comes in again later when they're like layering over each other. It's just so wonderful. Like on its own, this song I find very moving, and then of course when you're hearing it in context during the battle, it really just elevates that battle so much. So I'm happy to finally find a place on Rhythm Encounter for this arrangement. Moving over to Persona quickly, I've listened to some of the music from Reload, not like a full deep dive listen just yet, but also just this week the soundtrack for the DLC, the new version of The Answer came out, and it's like 20 something tracks, so I've been listening to that too. And one of the things I find really interesting about the Reload soundtrack and The Answer, or episode, I guess, is how much the music still feels like Persona 3, which I think that's really interesting to get a remake, and they have updated arrangements and all that. But we have something like this one, like Color Your Night. It's a new song, but it pulls in some familiar motifs and just it fits in so well. I even rechecked with Tin before we started. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is new to Reload, because it fits so well. It sounds like Persona, even though it's brand new. So I love that. For the song itself, like it's just a lot of fun. The lyrics have a nice driving motivation to them about pushing ahead. And there's a song later that I would probably use that phrase again, like pushing ahead, but it's more like pushing ahead through adversity or through like a difficult situation. But for me, like looking at the lyrics and listening to the song, this is a little more hopeful to me. We have lyrics about like coloring a town with my light, and it's been a good day, and it's going to be a good day. And I like that. I like the idea of like, you know, we're moving ahead, but it's like in a more positive aspect. Yeah, I just feel that really illustrates like the vibe we're going for with the episode, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I just learned that Color Your Night was not from the original and was new to Reload. And I did not realize, I'm not familiar with the Nier Automata soundtrack, and so I didn't know Weight of the World was originally from another source either. So that's really cool to find out, and makes a lot more sense, because one of the notes I had was that, oh yeah, when they're playing the melody, you could almost feel like there's words there, even though there's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And but I did think it was really cool that they changed the instrumentation around in a way that like it feels like the chorus is almost the percussion, and the think it was the strings or like the vocals, and it has this kind of weird, like, I don't even know how to say it, but the instrumentation is used in a really cool way, and it feels like a vocal performance in that way, which I'm now going to have to go and listen to the other one. And Color Your Night, I genuinely, like, even I was listening to it to prep for this, like half a dozen times, and was just like, oh yeah, it's the song from Persona 3. And had no idea that wasn't, or that was only in Reload. So yeah. It really hits the, is that just kind of the day-to-day in town, or one of the day-to-day in town themes, Jen?
Honestly, I haven't played Persona 3 Reload. But I've listened to this soundtrack over and over. It's one of those games that I haven't touched yet for this year, but I've listened to the music a lot more, so many times. So yeah. But I'm actually guessing it might be played during the day-to-day.
I think it is. I'm trying to remember because I am in the process of playing it. And I think maybe they do use the music, but without the vocals. I can't remember. But yeah, it'll definitely be that rather than like when you go into Tartarus or something, I think.
Right.
Going back to the Weight of the World Prelude version. I personally, I also love attending like orchestras, VGM orchestras, and I think this is like the one song I would really want to hear in live, like in person, being played, because I can't imagine. I never imagined that this combination would ever happen, and it's also like both songs that I really adore, like in the entire genre. So when I first also experienced this playing FF14 and during the raid, when the near raid came out, I was blown away with this version. And like it was literally okay for me to die and just listen to the music while my entire party was getting wiped out. Yeah, and I was sure that during the time when it just came out, I wasn't the only one. Like everyone was so chill. Everyone didn't mind dying because the music was so good during that raid. So yeah, like for me, this is one of the songs that it just never happened to blend together, and it works perfectly. And as for the song that I brought in the show, like this is the one that I meant that I've been really wanting to bring on Rhythm, even though I haven't played Persona 3 Reload yet. But this is actually my favorite track in the entire soundtrack. And just like everyone else here, when I first listened to the entire soundtrack, I thought this was also from the original game, and I was very surprised as well that it's actually new for Reload. That it was just Atsushi Kitajo who composed this, and like to those of you who doesn't know him, like he was mostly supporting Meguru's work for like the older Persona games, so he was like the one spearheading for the one for Reload soundtrack, which I really find impressive. It seems like he really did a good job with this track, and like maybe Meguro, if he had listened to this, he was probably like a proud sensei or something. Because this song really matches. Still, like it still stands on its own, but it still blends with the entire touch of the original Persona. So it's the reason also why I thought of bringing this in this inspiration episode is because like I always listen to the entire P3R soundtrack while I'm working, and this is like one of those that are like most that I play a lot of times, and I could easily get things done when this when this song is being played. So for me, it's very inspirational in a way, like day-to-day thing. So I guess that's the reason why I thought that this might be playing during the day-to-day part in the game. But I have to figure that out soon. So yeah.
I love that.
So with the Weight of the World track, I'm very familiar with Nier Automata and its soundtrack. Less so with Final Fantasy XIV, because I'm still way too early to have encountered any of this content. I'm literally like just after the end of A Realm Reborn still, so I've got a long way to go. But I found this kind of like Final Fantasy remix of the Nier track really cool. I think although the Nier Automata soundtrack is amazing, I find it also very serious, and I think the Final Fantasy XIV version of this kind of gives it a little bit more sort of whimsy, I guess. It's a little bit more playful, but still obviously like very dramatic. It just there's just something about it that, I don't know, it's like it's the Final Fantasy twist, I suppose, to it. And I because this was the first time that I'd ever heard it, the part where the Final Fantasy like theme, the descending and ascending notes, when that comes in, it's like I've written in my notes here, it's like when you're watching a film and like one of your favorite actors has like an unexpected cameo and they come on and you're like, yes. And it like hearing that over the top of the Nier track, I just found really cool, and it gave me like a sudden kind of moment of like joy when it started playing. So I thought that was really cool. And also weirdly, when I was listening to this track on YouTube after it finished, it started playing another song from Final Fantasy XIV, which was the version of Kaine, which started with the music that's at the end of Drakengard, and I heard it and I was like, whoa, what is this? So now I feel like I need to get to some of this Nier content in Final Fantasy XIV, because these songs have got me quite excited to get there. So so that was cool. And then with the Persona 3 track, I think this one was an interesting one for me because it felt maybe a little bit unexpected, and I think it's, especially in the context of the other tracks we've got on this episode, it feels slightly like a bit of an outlier, I suppose. It feels a lot more kind of laid back. It's very kind of cool and groovy, and I think that's interesting because it, like, songs that kind of inspire you and maybe are used in situations in games that might be classed as inspirational don't always have to be these really like energetic, loud kind of songs. And I think it's good that we've got this track from Persona 3 on there. I like that the vocals give you a bit of an in terms of like how to connect with it. I like that the kind of instrumentation changes with the different vocal sections of the song. I'd love to I really enjoy going on like walks around cities and stuff with my headphones on, and I'd love to do that with this song playing, because I think it would be really fitting for that kind of environment and situation. Yeah,
definitely. All right, so what I've learned then is so far we have some songs that have really inspired people, and also that one of us needs to continue playing Reload, and the other three of us need to get it. I actually did look it up, and right as of this recording, I can't promise for anyone listening when this comes out, but it's $40 online instead of $60 or $70, so I'm tempted.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not bad for a still relatively new release.
Probably not going to be getting to it anytime soon.
Well, no.
I have it. I watched my partner play it, and but it was not I'm sitting there paying enough attention to know when the song plays, clearly.
Right. Well, at least you have access to it. That's good. And like for me, there's a Zelda game coming out in less than 2 weeks, so I there's no way that right now I would start something like that. So, all right, let us move on to our second block. So our next block will be Rob and Lucas. So, Rob, what is your first song of the episode?
So I have chosen The Landing from Final Fantasy VIII by Nobuo Uematsu.
Okay. And Lucas?
My first track is Revolt or Thunder by Hitoshi Sakimoto and Masaharu Iwata from the Tactics Ogre Reborn soundtrack.
Excellent. So let's go listen to The Landing and Revolt or Thunder.
So I wanted to bring a track from Final Fantasy VIII because it is one of my favorite games. I think when I was coming up with what songs I wanted to bring to the podcast, I kind of went by game first and then selected tracks from those games second. So I'll talk about the song a bit first, and I'll talk a bit about why I chose Final Fantasy VIII. So with the landings, this is a track used really early in the game. I think it starts playing around maybe possibly the first cutscene in the entire game, other than like the opening cinematic. Your team are on a mission to a place called Dolit, which is under invasion by forces from a neighboring country called Galbadia, who are the antagonists of a good chunk of the game. So you're on this quite important mission, and so the music has got quite a job to do in terms of like getting you kind of pumped up and excited and sort of ready to tackle this mission. The track starts with this like heartbeat sound, and then some like quite ominous low strings start to come in, and then it just kind of builds from there, and it takes you on quite an interesting journey. There's some good like militaristic drums that come in, some like speedier synth notes over the top, which I think are really good at like building a sense of tension. I really love how the song moves through sections that feel quite distinct from one another. There's a section in it which uses a motif that occurs in a few Final Fantasy VIII tracks, so it's really nice that they have brought that into this song as well. I think it does a really good job of like encapsulating the energy of what is going on in that particular moment, and also the like importance of what you're doing in the game. So yeah, I thought it would be really fitting for this podcast. But in terms of why I wanted to bring Final Fantasy VIII, I think it was one of the first console games that I ever played. I think I did have a couple of PC games before I got my PlayStation, but it was one of the first games I got on my PlayStation for sure. And I must have been maybe like 12 or 13, I think, when I got it. And obviously everyone at that age, it's a very like formative age. You're working out kind of where your interests are, what kind of things inspire you. And yeah, I think Final Fantasy VIII for me just really hit the right kind of notes in terms of what kind of things I enjoyed. Like I love the quite realistic setting. I think out of all of the Final Fantasy worlds, I think Final Fantasy VIII is probably the most close to what we would recognize as our own life. But it's got like quite interesting kind of sci-fi fantasy slants here and there. I really love the characters who all come across as just quite ordinary people. But then also like while playing this game, I also have the strategy guide, which was full of like concept art and just kind of seeing all of the like thought that goes into building these games and stories and worlds. I found super inspiring at that age, and I remember someone that has been into like art and drawing ever since I was a child. I found it super inspirational in terms of like what this was doing for my imagination, and I remember spending hours like building my own strategy guides for games that didn't exist, and I would draw like all of the characters, and I'd like draw all of their weapons and what stats all the weapons had and what abilities all the characters had, and I'd draw all the world map and name all of the places. And I don't know, I feel like this game, along with the other RPGs that I was playing at the time as well, but especially Final Fantasy VIII, was really like a kind of triggering point for me in terms of like creatively what I enjoy, but also in terms of like gaming, but also science fiction and fantasy, what kind of things I enjoy within that genre outside of gaming. So yeah, it's a really important game for me, and so I wanted to bring a track from that to this episode. moving on to the Tactics Ogre track, I enjoyed this too. I have got Tactics Ogre Reborn, but I'm still kind of relatively early in the game. I think without sort of knowing what this track was when I saw that we were going to be covering it, but seeing that it was from Tactics Ogre, I felt like I had quite a good idea of what to expect. And I was right, but I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think this song being kind of predictable in terms of like guessing what you're going to get with a Tactics Ogre song, it is good because it fits so perfectly with its kind of medieval fantasy setting, with the fact that you're going into these like bigger battles in like strategy RPG battles with like a mini army of people. It really does create that very kind of motivational and inspirational feeling in you. It's got like the kind of rousing orchestra, like marching beat that continues through like the whole song. It just really works at like getting you moving, getting you thinking, getting you feeling positive. And as soon as I heard it, I thought, hey, this sounds like something from Final Fantasy XII. And then I looked it up and it's the same composer. It literally seems like it could be from that game to me. But yeah, it's a really good one.
I am really excited by all of the things that you just said, Rob, because I have so many of the same notes for like the sound of the games, first of all, with the very, like, you mentioned military drums. And when I was writing notes for the whole block, my first thought was, oh, yeah, this is like, both of these have this very like military feel.
Yeah, for sure.
And and the landing has this really cool action movie soundtrack feeling to it, which is, you know, a really good introduction to those characters and stuff, and to getting you invested in Final Fantasy VIII. But the actual reason I'm really excited is your story about making things as a kid, because that's literally the same reason I chose this, or chose Revolt. So this song, or the song Revolt, which I mentioned Revolt or Thunder in some of the original translations for the Ogre Battle soundtrack, it gets listed as Thunder. That's why I mentioned it both ways. So it was originally from Ogre Battle March of the Black Queen for the SNES. And Ogre Battle was one of my early RPGs. I remember my cousin had it, and I ended up like, I think there must have been an article about it in like Nintendo Power or something that I had access to. But it was definitely my first exposure to class systems in games. And when I was a kid, I would write out like my own versions of class systems and my own versions of game ideas that didn't exist, very similar to what Rob was saying. I actually went through before this episode and dug up. I have a bunch of the notebooks still. And sure enough, I was able to find several examples of these giant branching paths of class systems, very similar to the way that Ogre battles are laid out. And I feel like in addition to just inspiring me creatively in terms of thinking about like the idea of building characters and classes and stuff like that for games, a lot of that mindset is something that really I've carried with me into things like my love of tabletop RPGs. I still write a lot of class systems, and in this case, actually will do like homebrew stuff for my D&D games and that sort of thing. And it's definitely something that you can trace back to Ogre Battle for me.
So we actually just talked about Final Fantasy VIII in our last episode of Rhythm Encounter, and how its soundtrack it's really up there on the list of like best Final Fantasy and RPG soundtracks for a lot of people, me included. It just does so many great and interesting things, and it just has quite a variety across the whole soundtrack. And the landing in specific is just a really solid representation of something that Uematsu did really well in Final Fantasy VIII. This high energy drama, kind of like march music. It adds this, like, it really adds this air of like seriousness and high stakes when it, I mean, obviously in the game when it's played, but like anytime it comes up, it just gives you that sensation, and I like that. Even listening to it now, like outside of the context of the game, because I don't think I've played 8 actually since the original, so it's been a long time, but those feelings all like came back to me. It just really gives you this feeling that, not only do you need to take on some kind of difficult challenge, but that you can take it on. So I enjoy it. It's really a serious classic song from that game. And then Ogre Battle, this pairing actually between these two songs actually is one of the first ones that like clicked with me when I was planning this episode, because both of these songs, even though they sound very different, they have this like livelier, motivational march kind of sensation, just to like inspire you to battle kind of thing. So I like how these two paired up like that. And of course this one, one of the big differences is that this one's has like a more of a regal sound, which of course fits Tactics Ogre's like setting versus Final Fantasy VIII. And of course it's something that we now know that Sakimoto does very well. He just excels at that kind of theme. And I feel like this game got overlooked much more than it should have. I mean, I could be wrong, but the problem is it was one of those games that came out in a time where Square Enix was like, hey, you guys have unlimited funds and time, right? So we're going to release like 8 games between like October and Christmas. and maybe we'll market some of them. Maybe you won't even know that some of them came out. And they talked about this one a bit, but things like this and what was it? The light remaster of Romancing Saga Minstrel Song and whatever else came out, like too much came out, and I'm worried that this one got lost in the shuffle, and I just wish it wasn't. It's a game. It looks like they really had a decent budget. Like they put some real effort into remastering it and polishing it up, and I just think it's a game and a soundtrack that really deserves attention more than it got. So I'm glad that it's here. I'm glad that we can talk about it here and bring some more attention to it, because I think it's a great project they did, and this is a really solid example of what's great about the soundtrack.
You guys, it's like we all shared the same notes. I got like most of my notes are also like a mix of everything you guys mentioned. But yeah, to summarize it, I guess I also thought that in this entire episode that this specific block is the one that actually blend well together, because the landing and this Revolt or Thunder, also, they both sound like they're connected in a way. Like they can be both played in the same game, but probably in a different situation. But of course, even though they both sound way different when it comes to instrumentation, but they since it seems like they're both under like doing a mission in a way. Like when it comes to the landing, it's like it sounds like you're in the climax part of the game, while for Revolt or Thunder, it's like you're just about to get there or head there. And like what you guys were saying, it literally sounds like everyone's ready to march on and ready to fight and all that. But those are the things that I've gotten from both of these song picks. And similar to Mike, the last time I've ever played FF8 was also during the original, and it's way like that's like many years ago, and listening to this track also, it felt like I time traveled again, and it felt nostalgic. And personally, for me, like for 7, 8, 9, 8 might not have been my favorite, but the soundtrack is way up there for me, more than 7 and 9. And that's also like the best thing for me about the game, because the soundtrack is really, really good. Personally, I also think that this is one of the soundtrack that Uematsu created, and that's actually during his peak, I'd say. So yeah. And as for Tactics Ogre, I also haven't played this because it's just like what Mike mentioned. It came out during the time that Square Enix was just releasing so many games, and I'm also quite a bit sad that people quickly moved on from this one because of that reason. And yeah, hopefully one day I get to play this, because I heard it's also a pretty challenging strategy game. So, and I do love challenging games. So yeah.
Actually, a really good. I hadn't really thought about how little attention Tactics Ogre got, and I feel like thinking back on it, the main conversation that came out of Tactics Ogre Reborn getting released was, why haven't they done this with Final Fantasy Tactics yet?
Yes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
That is true.
Feels really disingenuous that, because it is a great game in its own right, and the Reborn version is like really cleans things up, and it's like really polished. It's really good.
Yes. Well, hopefully
we're all waiting.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully everyone that said that bought this one to show that there is still a market for SRPGs and remasters of them. So we'll see. I still, I mean, from the rumors, like, I still assume that the Tactics one is coming one day, but we'll see. Actually, really quick before we get to our next block, I'm glad you mentioned the nostalgia aspect on Final Fantasy 8, 10, because I wasn't thinking of that much, despite, remembering that I haven't played it since then. But you just saying that, like, did briefly take me back to 1999 with dial-up internet. I know I'm dating myself here, but it was really, and I'm not even complaining, but it was kind of an exciting time, because this is like, there was no YouTube or anything, but the internet was just at a point where, like, there was some video out there. So the idea that you could watch like tiny, like, thumb-sized trailers of games, and like I remember seeing some of the footage for this and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, it was fun. So that said, this actually brings us to our halfway point in the episode, and are we all ready to move on to block 3?
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, 10, what is your second song today?
The second song I'm bringing is called "The Song of the Sirens," and it's by Mothervibes. And this song is from Stellar Blade.
Okay, and Rob, what is your second song today too?
So mine is from 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, and it is Halcyon Days, but it's the branched version, which is basically from the remix album, and it's by Yoshimi Kudo.
All right, let's go take a listen to The Song of the Sirens and Halcyon Days Branched.
you guys probably have noticed like both of the songs that I brought in this episode have vocals. and and usually the songs that I would bring in rhythm don't really have vocals, and I'm also not really much of a someone who would always listen to vocals when it comes to VGM specifically. But the entire soundtrack of Stellar Blade, like when I first played it, I was pretty surprised by it. And a lot of the songs in the soundtrack also has a lot of vocals included. And there are a lot of different vocalists doing various songs in the entire soundtrack, but they all sound like they all go well together. And I know this game like received so much controversies and all that, but personally I don't really care about those things. It's most of like I was also drawn to this because I'm such a big Nier fan, and the game was like being promoted by Mr. Yoko Taro himself as well, like just supporting fellow developers and all that. But yeah, going back to this song, the composer of this is like I think this was the only song she contributed, if I'm not wrong, like in the entire soundtrack. And I just love how this how it sounds like in general, similar to Color Your Night. Like for me, the word inspiration or inspirational is like compared to the songs that you guys brought in the show. For me, that word is like tied with the feeling of peace and like serenity and like being calm, because usually that's the time when I actually feel a lot more inspired in general. Like I have to reach that kind of zen feeling. So yeah, in the entire soundtrack of Stellar Blade, I really like this song. And apart from the tunes, the relaxing tunes that plays in the beginning, even the voice of the vocalist sounds very cold in a way to me, and I really like that. And that's generally why I brought it here. And yeah, I have nothing much to say regarding how it sounds, but that's pretty much how I think of it. And going to Rob's pick with Halcyon Days, actually I haven't played 13 Sentinels, and I know that I'm also missing out because everyone in the site is raving about it. And if I'm not mistaken, Rob, this one is like a different version, right, from whatever plays in the game?
Yeah, I think the original version of this song plays when the characters are in the high school. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I played it. So this is like a remix version of that.
Yeah. As for this version, it sounds very trippy in a sense, like very upbeat. And I do like remixes, how they're being handled, especially for this one. I have to listen though to the with the original song, so I'll do that probably after this episode. But the vibes I'm getting from this is compared to the song that I brought, which started out pretty peaceful and serenity and all that. This one is like what I said earlier, it's very energetic. I that's exactly what I'm getting from this remix. And I'm not sure like how they actually remix this. Is this mixed with other tracks in the soundtrack, Or not really?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just been like redone by the composers that did the original soundtrack. So it isn't mixed with other tracks. I think it's just been like altered using the original track itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very catchy for me. That's what I'm getting from it. So tell me more about it.
I will do. So I picked this version of the song specifically because I actually prefer it, I think, over the original that's in the game. But they're not too far sort of removed from each other. When I was kind of thinking about how to describe how they're sort of similar but different, because I think they both have quite a like nostalgic sort of very light and breezy kind of vibe to them, but I can often think in quite a visual way. So I was trying to think of like a scenario which would describe like the difference between the two, but to kind of tie them together. And so I'll tell you in my head how it looked. So if you imagine the original track that's in the game is like you're in like a field in the countryside, it's like summer, it's really warm, and you're like lying under a tree with your friends and the sun's like coming through the leaves and hitting your face, and you just feel really like safe and content and happy. That's like the feeling of the original version that's in the game. The remixed version is like before you get to the calm part with your friends, it's like the part where you're running through the field and you're like laughing with each other and you're, you know, like jumping, and there's a kind of like more sort of ecstaticness to the energy, but both of those feelings are still part of the same moment, so they're like linked with each other, I think. So the remix, I felt like it still captured part of the same essence of the original song, but it just took it in like a slightly different direction. I particularly like this version because it reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you guys know the Japanese group Perfume, but it reminds me a lot of their like early music. They do like electro pop, and I'm a big fan of Perfume, and it sounds like maybe one of their songs but with different vocals. I particularly like the sections in the middle of this track where like the beat drops away and it kind of highlights some of the other parts of what's going on, because I think sometimes this track becomes dangerously close to like becoming too much and having kind of too many layers of sound going on at the same time. And so there's a couple of moments near the middle where like elements kind of drop away. There's a really lovely part where the beat kind of stops and then some really like elegant strings kind of come in, and then the looped vocal starts kind of playing over the strings. I think it's really just really beautifully done. The game itself, I mainly find inspirational from a kind of planning point of view, just in like the complexity of it. The story on its own is very complicated, and then to kind of divide that story between 13 different characters, each having multiple chapters, and then letting the player decide the order that you play them in, and for the story to then still make sense, I think is kind of mind-blowing in terms of like the amount of planning and thought that must have gone into like putting all that together. But then also like it's a vanillaware game, so the artwork in it is obviously something that would draw me to it as well. Like the game on the whole is just really beautifully designed. So yeah, I wanted to have a track from that one because it's probably one of my favorite games from the last few years. But I was also really excited to have a Stellar Blade song. When I saw that you picked this one, Tim, I was like, yes. Because this one, it has such a good soundtrack. I got this game when it came out, but I think it was slightly unfortunate in that it came out in a period of time where there were so many, similar to with Tactics Ogre, there were so many other games coming out when this was released. So I've only played the first few hours, and then I was like, I need to put this down for a little bit until I've played some other ones, and then I'll come back to it. But the soundtrack is great. It gives me like quite heavy Nier Automata vibes, but it's a lot more kind of chilled. It has a very like contemporary, this track especially is very like, it has a really nice kind of airy, sort of spacious sound to it that gives you a bit of kind of room to breathe, which is strange because the game doesn't really feel like that at all. But it's just, yeah, it's really lovely and chill. I feel like it's the kind of thing you would put on like at the end of quite a busy day. You would put it on and just like relax with it, maybe reflect on what you had done. I think just in terms of like going back to the inspirational side of stuff, I think a lot of the time moments of inspiration happen at times when you're going through like heightened emotional states and you've got like a buzz kind of running through your body. I feel like this track is more like you're inspired by something that's occurring when reflecting back on something that you've done already, rather than it being like in the moment. But yeah, it's great. I think we need more Stellar Blade. It's cool.
Yeah, just to add also, it probably only took a while before I actually found out that in the entire soundtrack, I think that studio or which Keiichi Okabe is like, he's the director for that studio, which was it Monaco or something?
Monaco, yeah.
Yeah, or Monaco, yes. So I actually found out that they actually helped with this entire soundtrack. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like portion of it, not entirely, but they supported it, I think.
Yeah,
I was also pretty surprised.
Yeah, I saw one of the tracks is credited to Oliver Good from Monaco, so I wasn't sure if anyone else in the team or if it was just Oliver. But no, that's a good point, because I noticed that too. I forgot I noticed it, but I know Oliver worked on music for all the Voice of Cards games recently, and lots of other things. But that's where I recognize his name from.
I was a bit surprised, but at the same time, it's like, oh, it totally makes sense, because you get that near vibe thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really liked Rob's description there of airy for Song of Sirens. That was I had it down that it had some kind of whimsical and ethereal notes to it, but I actually really like the description of airy for it. It has this very flowy aspect to it. I was having trouble finding like context and lyrics for it when I was looking, because I was trying to figure out exactly where that fit. But just from a vibes perspective, it is definitely very relaxing, reflective. While there was definitely nothing relaxing in the initial listen for Halcyon days, that was just this infectiously energetic, optimistic, like, I can definitely see where that fits as inspirational with just how upbeat it is. This like, I mean, you even said, Rob, it was almost a little too much at times.
Yeah.
My first note for it was suddenly bubblegum. But yeah, no, I'm not familiar with the game, and that was definitely just this awesome introduction and was definitely stuck in my head on and off throughout the last week.
Bubblegum description is perfect.
Yeah. I know some of the pairings on this episode are a little tricky. These two don't pair perfectly well, but we had such a variety in this episode. I couldn't find a perfect match for everything. So yeah, this one's a little bit of both ends of things, right? This is actually the first song I've heard from Stellar Blade, and I'm not sure what it was I was expecting, just because I know that there is some like, you know, near inspiration there. But no, this is beautiful. It does, not to repeat everyone else too much, but it does give me a bit of that near flavor without like sounding like it's just copying it. It's just the more broad strokes of like the backing music and the vocals that are a little bit wistful, and maybe you could interpret them as being sort of melancholy, or at least like a little lower. Yeah, again, near vibes, but not derivative, I feel. And I don't really have any context for it in the game, so I'm not sure if that is the mood I should be getting from it or not, but it's just really lovely. And beyond the vocals, I really like the parts where the guitar comes in. Really just, I like that you brought this on for this, because it's a different kind of inspiration. I like how you described it, Tin, like how you would use it, how you're more inspired in like the quieter moments, and I like that. And then going in a completely different direction, we have the happiest song of the episode. I since I still haven't played 13 Sentinels either, I knew this, but I did know this is from the Arrange album. So I had when I was doing notes for this episode, I listened to the original version first, and wow, that's quite a shift, a big tonal shift. I would definitely encourage people to like listen to them both and compare, because it's a very interesting thing they did. Like the original version still feels lighthearted, like this one does, but the instrumentation is it's a lot more reserved and kind of relaxing. Actually, the original one probably would pair very well with this Stellar Blade song, but the branch version, it's just, I like the bubblegum description. It's way more succinct than what I came up with, because my notes were more along the lines of like the original version of the song just ate too much sugar, and it's just like bouncing around everywhere. But I don't mean that in a bad way. I think it's very interesting. Like I always love when songs can be transformed so much with an arrangement, and sometimes, a lot of times when you transform it that much, it changes the song. Which is fine, you know, that's part of the fun of arranging music. But I like when even this one, as different as it sounds, I still feel like it keeps that core whatever essence, I guess, of the original, even though I think that's very cool. Gotta be hard to do. Obviously, I don't arrange music, let alone try to take something that's this and change it into this, and then sort of still give the same vibes. I think that's great. So I think this is only the second time we've had a song from the Branched album, and both times have just been really great. So I'm happy that it's here, and I will stop saying the word great soon. All right. Are we ready for our final block today?
Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. We're starting with you, Lucas. What do we got?
Okay. For my second song, I brought Tumult, Raise Thy Sword in Pride by Yuzo Koshiro. And this is from the Etrian Odyssey 3 HD remake.
Yeah, because I don't think there's an actual soundtrack for that, right? But it's from the game.
Yes.
Okay.
I was not able to find the soundtrack.
Yeah, they should really release that. Okay, and then after that is my other song, and I have Hopes and Dreams from Undertale, and that is by Toby Fox. So let's go listen to Tumult, Raise Thy Sword in Pride, and Hopes and Dreams.
So I realized when I was writing my notes for Tumult that I apparently have a type as far as songs that I bring on this show, which is just over-the-top boss music, as evidenced by my my Lufia 2 brings from earlier episodes. Yeah, this is one of the boss battle themes from Etrian Odyssey 3, which is... I absolutely love this series, and I was trying to think of ways that games have inspired me, and I feel like in a lot of ways the Etrian Odyssey series, and this was... I think 3 was the first one where it really clicked for me. It's the idea of trying to overcome an obstacle. The idea of challenging games where you can't just push your way through it. You can't just bash your head against the wall until you get through. You can't over level. You can't just force your way and mash attack. You have to slow down, figure out a strategy, learn and grow and think. And there's something really inspiring about overcoming those challenges to me. And I feel like it's something that I've carried with me into things like a lot of the hard platformers that I like, a lot of Metroidvania games, a lot of the challenging, I like a lot of randomizers and ROM hacks and stuff. And even stuff like Souls-likes, like Elden Ring and stuff, having the idea of being able to slow down and figure out how to overcome an obstacle is something that really inspires me. And I feel like this song is a great representation of that. It is just this over-the-top, rock vibe. And I guess I don't know if everyone else knew the context for that, but it feels like one of those where you could get the context without knowing it, just because it is it feels like a boss track.
Yeah. I mean, I'll let you keep going, but I do want to chime in and say yes. I definitely did get that. Between the sound and the title, I'm like, I figured that's what this was, so I'm glad you confirmed.
And apparently this is also the boss track block, because Hopes and Dreams from Undertale was a great bring for this. And literally when I was brainstorming my list for those, one of the first notes I put for myself was Undertale ? Because it feels like when you're talking about inspiring games, that is literally the first thing that came to mind for me. However, I'm not super familiar with Undertale. I have played it, but I haven't actually finished it, and I'm not as familiar as some people with the soundtrack. But this feels like a great one to kind of wrap up the conversation, because from the idea of Undertale being a one-man project to the fact that how transformative it was for the genre of RPGs, how much it does new things, and especially the fact that this song comes from the ends of the pacifist route, if my research was correct.
Yes.
Which is, probably the most unique thing about Undertale in a lot of ways. The fact that you can play through an RPG as a pacifist. It's upbeat. It's not the bubblegum sugar version of that. It's thoughtful, it's whimsical, it's reflective. There's callbacks to earlier themes. It's an awesome track and an awesome choice that I don't necessarily feel the most qualified to talk about, but that's okay. It still hit all the buttons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if people are qualified. If you enjoyed it and want and talk about it, then that's all we need here.
Even the first time, I also listened to Lucas' track before we even recorded today. I really knew that, this is like a final boss music. You could correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I know it's a boss music, but it sounds like it's the final one.
Lucas?
No.
No.
Um,
Okay.
It has that vibe, though.
It definitely has. So it is one of the floor bosses, which, so Etrian Odyssey has like 5 different sections to it, and there's a boss at the end of each one. So this is one of the boss themes from that. But yeah, no, it's, they make every boss pretty epic.
Yeah, that's exactly what I got from listening to this song. But I also really find it cool whenever that drum would just do that beat before it goes crazy. And similar to Mike's pick, the one I love the most for the Undertale one is when the guitar would just do that thing, and then everything just goes. I think that's the similarity I'm getting from both of this track. It's like there's like a certain instrument that would highlight or shine in the entire song, and I love both of them. I also really love this Undertale song that I'm glad you brought it here in the show, Mike. And I'm also pretty surprised that it hasn't been on the show. So, yeah.
Me too.
So for me, I think this was the block that I kind of had the least experience with. I have never played any Etrian Odyssey game, and I haven't played Undertale. So yeah, I was really excited to listen to these. I think the Etrian Odyssey one, I love the fast paced, and the drum beat is so like rocky. Like I could imagine someone really going for it with some like headbanging to this one. It's got like the really cool kind of jagged like synthy sounds. Yeah, I thought it was good. It kind of gives me, there's something about it. I'm not sure if it's the like, it's the like sound of the synths. There's something kind of organy about them. It kind of reminds me that one of the first things I thought of when I heard this was I could imagine it playing in like a vampire's castle, or if you were like fighting some kind of undead boss or something. There's just something about the sound to it which gives me that very kind of traditional like vampire-y sound. Maybe that's just me, I don't know, but
I blame Castlevania.
Yes, it's got that vibe for sure. But it's really good. I love there's some sections like towards the end, I think, where the beat drops out and it gives you like a quick blast of the like synth, and then it all kind of comes back in. It's got a really good like frantic energy to it, which is really cool. And then with the Undertale one, this one was amazing. I absolutely loved this one. I remember when I first pressed play and the strings that opened the track started playing, I was like, yeah, this sounds really inspiring. I'm enjoying this one. I feel like I know where this is going. But I did not know where it was going at all. I love there's so many different sounds in this one. I feel like it's got elements of like rock, it's got elements of like electronic pop music, it's got classical influences, and then there's the more kind of traditional like synthy, glitchy kind of video game music. It has so many different stages to it, different sections. It almost sounds to me like if you put some vocals over the top of this, it could literally be like a pop song. I just thought it was great. It's really like over the top. For me, this is probably my favorite track that we've listened to on this episode, and it's absolutely inspired me to want to play Undertale. So I need to give it a go because I thought it was great.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. It took me a couple of years to get to it. I didn't actually play it until it came out on Switch, but I'm very glad I did. But before that, quickly on Etrian Odyssey, this is so fun. as always, when a song is under 2 minutes, I wish it was longer. But it starts off like, it just starts off from the very beginning, like so powerfully, and it doesn't let up. Just this cool like rock song. I love the intro, and then a little bit into it, the drums that kind of lead into the main melody. I kept trying to think of a better word for this while I was doing my notes, but the word that kept coming to mind is punchy. So I was like, you know what? If this is not a battle theme where you're like punching someone in the face, then I don't even know what it is. So I'm glad that it was. Yeah, really, a really fun choice. I don't remember if Scott played Etrian Odyssey 3 on his streams. He's been streaming Atlas stuff all summer, and I know he did 4 or 5 recently. But yeah, that's about as close as I've gotten to Etrian Odyssey personally, was watching other people play it. But I'm glad you brought it. Really fun, and I, like everyone else, I enjoy your reasoning for bringing it on. So great choice. So for Undertale, I feel like I can hear a hypothetical person saying how Hopes and Dreams may be an obvious choice for this episode, but you know what? I picked my songs last for this episode, and nobody else grabbed it. So there you go. It can't be that obvious, but it is surprising. We've had a fair amount of Undertale on the show, and no one picked this. So, you know, I choose to believe that it was never on the show because it was meant to debut in this episode, and I'm glad, because it was one of those things as I'm researching songs, like, oh, this is perfect. Like, this is the song for this episode. So I'm glad I could do it. So Undertale is actually, the day we record this, 9 years old, which is, I don't want to think about that. And I was not going to discuss the context of the song much anyway, because whether it's or not it's 9 years old, and, you know, people can do the like, well, you should have played it by now if you don't want to be spoiled kind of thing. I don't like spoiling things, especially for something like this, and especially for our panel here who has not, some of them have not played it yet. It's too important to me to give anything away. But yes, we at least have covered the fact that it plays towards the end of the pacifist route, and it's so cool. Like, just the way the game comes together by the end of that route is such an experience. And this song, I like that the game and the music come together in the same way, because, you know, like Lucas, like you said, this brings in some familiar motifs and themes from the rest of the game, and it's yeah. Now I'm in danger of saying the word experience too much, because it was just such, all of Undertale was such an amazing experience for me, and then getting to this part, it's stuck in my brain. It's just never left. I'm sure I've said this, if not on this show, on some show at some point, but I'm one of those people that if someone tries too hard to get me to play something or watch something, I don't want to do it. Not just to be contrary, but more like, you've built it up so much now. Like, if I don't absolutely love it, I'm going to feel disappointed because of everything I've heard. So like, that's one of the reasons I held off a little bit. I'm like, no, like, my expectations are too high on this. But it was worth it in the end, and I'm glad I did it. So I will say it's something you should play if you haven't. You know, to get through all the routes in the game, well, 2 of them, I will not do the 3rd one. And like, what you need to do to get to this point, to hear this song, like, it's a lot. You have to go play things a certain way, obviously the pacifist, like we talked about, and just such a payoff, narratively and musically. This whole sequence is just, it feels like it's very earned by the time you get there. You know, the song brings everything together in just such a great moving way. What happens in this portion of the game, like as the song plays, really fits with the music so well. Like, I know the theme of this episode is inspirational, but I feel like it's important to use the word determination instead. You are very much filled with determination during this, and I just absolutely love this song. And while numbers alone do not qualify a good song or make a song good, I will say I noticed as I was doing notes, the YouTube version of this that we were listening to take notes on is up to 15 million views. So, you know, that's not nothing. And one semi-last thing, while I did ultimately use this one, this is just the original version from the game, I was very close to picking an arrangement one. So I'm not going to cheat and pull on multiple versions, but I will recommend anyone who likes this try checking out some other arrangements as well. Specifically, I was looking at the albums Fallen and Straight from the Underground because there's some really, really great Hopes and Dreams arrangements on both of those. It was very close, but I wanted to stick with the original in this case.
I feel like that we've had a lot of comments throughout this episode of make sure to check out the other versions or the originals.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And actually one last very final thing. This was actually really, really weird to me and entertaining. I was taking my notes fairly late last night. I was finishing up my notes late last night. And again, today, this episode airs 9 or 10 days from now, but as we're recording this, it's like the 9th anniversary of Undertale. Last night, as I was doing these notes, I got an email from Fangamer, who just launched a new collection of Undertale kitchen collection items. And I thought it was weird. Like, literally the email came in like 3 minutes before I was typing my notes for this specific song. And I just thought the timing of that was wild. We are not affiliates with Fangamer. However, Fangamer, if you would like to sponsor the show and give us money, that would be great. But I will say, if you like Undertale, I'm putting a link in the show notes just because I think it's fun and it's fitting to have Undertale on here, that they have like a Toriel apron and an oven mitt. And musically, if anyone knows the reference here, there's a glass with sands on it, and it's called the glass you might drink out of when you fight sands. And to explain that for anyone who doesn't know, there is a song on Undertale on the soundtrack that's called the song that might play when you fight sands, which is not in the game. I read about it a while ago, and I think what it is, it's something like, I think Toby Fox put it on the soundtrack. So if anyone was like looking at the track list, they think they're like are spoiled by something that happens in the game, but the song is not in the game, as far as I know. So the fact that they went that far and had that reference as a product name is just a lot of fun. Like that's like absolutely catering to the fans. So thank you, Fangamer, for all the money I'm about to spend with you. Yeah. So yeah, that is our show. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for bringing on such
good music
and for the fun discussion. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. Of course, I'm referring to the three of you, but also everyone listening. So the other three of you. On this episode, I know we have more than three listeners, even though I only hear from a couple of them. You know, we don't have the listenership of Retro Encounter, but that's okay. I like what we're doing here. So whoever's listening and enjoying, then this is for you. On this episode, we had few games they make their Rhythm Encounter debut, which were Etrian Odyssey 3 HD. I think we've had the original Etrian Odyssey 3, but not the HD one. This is also the first time having music from Tactics Ogre Reborn and Stellar Blade. So thank you everyone for our debut episodes or debut games. Coming next on Rhythm Encounter, I'm actually glad that Castlevania quietly came up in that last discussion there, because we are doing a composer spotlight episode on Michiru Yamane, which doesn't only do Castlevania, but is definitely well known in our circles for her fantastic work on Castlevania, and probably exactly the reason why we associate rock and some other stuff with vampires and stuff like that. So that's for me, a long-awaited composer episode. We're doing that one, and then later in October, we're doing a Halloween episode. So spooky music from games. Because our last Halloween episode was in 2020, so it's been 4 years. So I thought it was time to do another one. If you have thoughts on this episode, any feedback, ideas for future topics, or if you want to just tell us some games or music that inspire you, you can email us at music@rpgfan.com. That's also the best way to reach me personally. And how about for everyone else? What's the best way for people to reach you, Rob?
Probably on Twitter for now. I'm Robot Rob. I can't even talk. Robot Rob with zeros.
Okay. And Lucas?
You can find me on most social media platforms as Rafegal, Raefgall, and you can find me on YouTube doing daily Let's Play videos.
All right. And Tin?
Oh, you can find me on Discord. Literally just Tin there. And also you can email me at tin@rpgfan.com.
Right. If you enjoyed this episode of Rhythm Encounter, we are not the only show on the RPG Fan network of podcasts. We also have Random Encounter and Retro Encounter. Random Encounter, most recently, honestly a coincidence, just posted an episode discussing the Legends of Localization book about Undertale. That went up last week. Jono and Hillary talked about that, and what a super fun book. I haven't gone through the whole book so far, but it's a great read, and I'm glad they talked about it. So check that out. Over on Retro Encounter is currently in the middle of a month of shorter adventure games. Last week they did an episode on the case of the Golden Idol. The week before that was Firewatch. That one I have played, actually. I like when I can say I played a game that was on Retro. Firewatch was a great experience. So yeah, Firewatch, the case of the Golden Idol, and then later this week they are doing Day of the Tentacle. So go check those out if you want your retro adventure game fixes. And then you can find RPG Fan on most social media as RPGFan.com. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter. Apparently I put someone put Blue Sky in the notes here.
That was me.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I don't think that was there. That threw me off. I'll have to get a link for that one and put it in. We haven't officially launched there yet, but for now you can find us if you look. We also have a Twitch channel. We're on YouTube, and we have a Discord server as well. So all of these links are in our show notes, so check those out. You can find us, the site, at rpgfan.com. And then on our website, we also have our shop. You can get to that at rpgfan.com/shop. So we have a lot of RPG Fan merch you can get, and then our review card collection book, which I will spare you the long description I usually give. I'll just say the book is beautiful. It's great. Get a copy. Christmas is coming up. If you enjoyed this show, you can review us on Apple Podcasts. Well, you should review us. Review us, subscribe, whatever you do on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever it is you listen. We would appreciate the support. And that is about it. We're at the end of our show now. And Rob, since you are our newest person here, we asked you to pick a bonus track. So what bonus track are we ending our episode with?
So I have chosen End of the Unknown by Keiichi Okabe from Nier Automata. I had my 3 tracks picked before I decided which one was going to be the bonus track. But I went with this one because I feel like it's pretty widely recognized how good of a game Nier Automata is. People talk generally a lot about how inspirational a lot of the elements of the game are, the amazing story, the character design, the amazing soundtrack. So I felt maybe we didn't really need to talk about this one so much in as much detail as some of the others. But I picked this song because it's a bit of an oddball on the soundtrack. It's got a kind of slightly different vibe to a lot of the other tracks. It's got a really interesting contrast between a very sort of modern industrial kind of musical element with quite a kind of tribal vocal over the top, and it's just really good. Enjoy.
I agree with all of that. I think it's a solid choice to end us on. So as we started with Nier, we're going to end with Nier today. So thank you all for listening. Thank all 3 of you for being here today. And we are going to leave you with End of the Unknown from Nier Automata. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. Of course, I'm referring to the three of you, but also everyone listening. So the other three of you. On this episode,